Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Denise Hurst, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Vice President of Advancement and External Affairs here at Springfield Technical Community College. Thank you so much for joining us today for our community conversations with our esteemed panelists. We are so hopeful that you will enjoy today's presentation. And I do want to just take a moment to apologize for the delay. We had a bit of some technical difficulties, but we seem to have corrected those, and we will soon be on our way. Right before I jump into introducing our panelists, I do want to give way to the leader of our institution, Dr. John B. Cook, to provide some opening remarks.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Thank you, Denise. Good afternoon, everyone, to our college community and to our extended community. Welcome. Great to have you. We are in incredible company today. It is not lost on us to Representative Williams, Representative Puppolo, Representative Ramos, Senator Gomez, the fact that you were once students at the college and now serve in these incredible policymaker roles is truly a credit to you and to this wonderful college institution. Really looking forward to the conversation ahead. And with the backdrop that, times are certainly difficult in higher education. It was a dynamic changing world prior to the pandemic. And what we've seen is things like enrollment declines that have really hit all community colleges, not just in the Northeast, not just in New England, but really across the United States. And we look to you. I know your steady guidance and my conversations with you over these last months have been really helpful. And we see some of the policy work, like the recent economic development bill passed and moved forward, had $5 million for the college for a really important capital project. This is the type of work that really helps address the need at a place like STCC. So looking forward to getting to the great conversation about how you see your work and where it started from your time walking around on campus. So thank you so much. Looking forward to it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Cook. So before we jump right into our questions, I want to make sure that the viewing audience knows, and for our panelists, that we want this to be a great conversation and an interactive dialogue. And so we will, of course, start out with some prepared questions, but we invite and encourage our audience to put some questions in the Q&A button down at the bottom of your screen and to utilize the chat. In addition, we'll take some questions from the audience at the very end and then allow each of our panelists an opportunity to give us some closing remarks. I also just want to encourage you all to share on your own social media platforms with others who are interested in attending. It's still not too late. And to follow each of these legislators on various social media platforms. And we invite the representatives and the senator to put your information in the chat for those that are viewing. It's really important for you to be able to have access to your legislators, and we want to make sure that you're able to do that, and we invite you all to share your information with them. So what we are going to do is we're going to start off with some prepared questions, and we are going to start off with the Dean of the legislation, which would be Representative Angelo J. Puppolo Jr. And very briefly, before we begin, I just want to do my due diligence and really recognize the leadership of each legislator that's on this call, on this Zoom, and just provide a really brief bio. Representative Angelo J. Puppolo Jr. is a lifelong resident of the city of Springfield. Representative Puppolo attended Springfield Public Schools and graduated from the former Classical High School. He was also a successful small business owner operating a plumbing and heating company his family established in Springfield 3 generations ago. While working, Representative Puppolo put himself through college, earning degrees in political science and business finance, as well as his Juris Doctor degree. Representative Williams was born and raised in the great city of Springfield as well. He has a long history of being civically and politically involved locally and statewide with a mission and a purpose for advancing the civil rights of the African American community. Representative Williams served for many years as a state probation officer for the Massachusetts Trial Court. He also served with distinction on the Springfield City Council before being elected to the state legislature. Representative Ramos, newly elected, was also born and raised here in the great city of Springfield. After graduating from Putnam Vocational Technical High School, he joined the workforce as a union carpenter and member of the United Brotherhood of Carpenters Local 108. Representative Ramos decided to go back to school in pursuit of a college education. He earned an associate's degree from STCC in 2012, as well as his undergraduate degree from UMass Amherst and a master's in public administration from Westfield State. Before being elected to the Massachusetts General Court, House of State Representatives, Representative Ramos served as the two-term council president for the City Council. And last, but certainly not least, also a native son of the city of Springfield, Senator Gomez graduated from the Springfield Public Schools. He is a proud Afro-Latino, a father of three, a former small business owner, and a tireless advocate for veterans, the Black and the Latino communities. Senator Gomez recently completed his third term as a Springfield City Councilor and is now the first Latino from Hampden County to serve in the Massachusetts Senate. Thank you all for your time. So our very first question is going to go first to Representative Puppolo, and then feel free, any one of you, to all jump in. And I do just want to say, because I know how you all like to talk, being an elected official, I know how we, get a hold of the mic and we don't want to let it go. I just want to encourage you all to be brief so that we can get through our questions and make sure that our audience has an opportunity to also ask questions. So, Representative Puppolo, was there one particular factor that led to you attending STCC?
Yeah, first off, thanks, Denise, for that warm introduction. I appreciate it very much. And President Cook, it's always great to serve you and everybody that's on the call, my colleagues. In addition to obviously being, former students over at STCC, we've all been on the city council. So there's a couple little, traits there that run concurrent to everybody. But yeah, I mean, I think going back to the beginning, I graduated, from classical high school, as you said. And then I took some time off, went into family business. I took some time off from education. And then went back, a few years later, actually went back to college and I started, obviously right at STCC. I think there was a number of reasons. I think the convenience, being not too far away from my house, and the fact that I still did work. So I was a part-time student in the beginning, being a sort of non-traditional, if you will, student. Someone did come right out of high school. So, I think, the scheduling, the classes, the ability to come onto campus and as an older student, if you will, and be accepted and not have, issues, right? So, the faculty was great. I think then, the president was then Andrew Shabelli over at the college. I know Ray DiPasquale was there and he helped me out. And it was the ease of the process. I think I went in, took the math exam for placement, enrolled in courses, and then the next thing I knew, I was there. And I graduated with honors, and I got my associates in business finance, and I think the environment and just the ease and the opportunity of it, and I hear that from a lot of students, currently, right? So in terms of saying, maybe it's they're working. There's other issues that they got family responsibilities. So it's the ability to go back in a sort of a non-traditional, but yet traditional formal way, get a solid foundation, and be able to build from there. So, had I not went to STIC, I probably wouldn't have went on to American International College and certainly wouldn't have went on to law school. So, I credit the beginning at STIC, for the opportunity to begin my, college education. But that beginning allowed me to advance it even further. So I think that's pretty much, the mainstay of why STIC's important to me. And, certainly, I remain close to it. And, every time, that we can help and there's an opportunity, I don't forget my roots. I don't forget where I began. And certainly don't forget the impact that this institution has had on me in the past and certainly going to have moving forward.
Thank you. Anyone else? What led to you attending STCC? I see you leaning in, Representative Williams.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at it. First of all, thank you folks for putting on this forum and giving us a chance to have a very spirited conversation about STIC and what it stands. Now, I go back to STIC. STCC started out at STI. It was a brainchild of my then principal, Edmund P. Garvey, who was principal of trade school, retired Army admiral. He had a brainchild to start STIC. He started STIC as STI, Springfield Technical Institute. They moved from trade school down to the old armory at the time. And he was connected to the White House because he was a retired admiral. That's why you had the college facility ended up on the grounds of the armory. But I had another way of getting to STIC. After high school, my father died, and I had scholarships to attend many colleges throughout the country. I had to stay close to home and to stay because I was one of 10 children, and I still had to help my mother with my brothers and sisters. So I went to STI at the time, enrolled in, it was computer science at the time. I should have stayed in it. I probably would have made a lot of money if I had stayed with it, because that became the future. And out of that, remember, not only STI, you had MCDI, which was Frank Gallooni, who started MCDI with Dave Cruz in that group. And then, well, Frank Gallooni is down in Connecticut as a college president. So that was a very, very bright individuals that started a lot of things. And STI became STCC, and I went down there, got an associate's degree in technology. That wasn't the exact word. They had another word for it at the time. Went from there to Westfield State, to University of Massachusetts. So STIC has always been dear to my heart. I remember starting the first African-American Cultural Center at STIC. I was the first president in 19 so-and-so. But I had many great days there. My wife went to STIC. My brother-in-law went to STIC. STIC was the family college, junior college at the time. And I call STIC the People's College because it really is. It serves, as Angelo said, it served a lot of individuals who, you know, sometimes it takes time to take that step to go to the next step. And STIC was that stepping stone that we use, many of us use. And I've always been indebted to STIC, and especially the founding father of STIC, which was Edmund P. Garvey. I will never, ever forget him. Thank you.
Thank you. Rep. Ramos, Senator Gomez.
I graduated, I'm sorry. So I graduated in 2001 from the High School of Science and Technology. And obviously I come from a big family. I'm one of 9. And at the same time, my sister was graduating as well at the same year as I was, my sister Janet. And I realistically, as much as we applied to 4-year schools, the truth is evident that, you know, my parents couldn't, we're at that peak that we didn't get no financial aid. And honestly, my dad gave me 2 things because I come from an Army family. It's, if you want to go to school, you're going to have to pay for it. If not, you're going to have to go to the Army. And I didn't feel like I wanted to go to the Army as of yet. So I ended up going to STIC, right? And I attended STIC for about 1.5 years, and I had to get my grades right. I got my grades right, and I didn't necessarily finish at STCC, but I built a lot of relationships, because I kind of called it 13th grade, right? So you have these rivalries that you grew up in Springfield with, or you know, with people from different towns. And then for some weird reason, you know, the people that used to rival with, you know, if it's sports or just, you know, high school alma mater, you kind of collapse into one school, you know, and you see each other in passing, and you guys become just one big school, right? You know, we were all Rams, no matter if you were an Eagle, a Siren Cat, or a Beaver, or wherever you're from in the Valley. But I think that, you know, transferring from, you know, it gave me a stepping stone. It made me, it helped me take some classes that I needed to retake, to relearn some different things, let it be math or writing. it really led me into a direction to once I transferred, even though I didn't get to finish at Springfield Technical Community College, that once I transferred to the Urban Education Department through a partnership through Westfield State, I was able to go to Westfield State the year after and hit the ground running. You know, I made tremendous relationships. There was a lot, it kind of sparked my advocacy and understanding a little bit, taking some sociology classes with some teachers. But honestly, I think that it was easy for me to go to Stick and transition because, you know, we used to take that PBTA bus and see Stick. Stick was like that other high school, or kind of like the higher learning aspect that you didn't really get to understand, but you pass it on the way to school. But Stick was definitely very instrumental in me getting into my advocacy and understanding how important education is. I'll cut it really quick and short.
Fantastic. And we'll end with you, Rep. Ramos, before we hand it over to Dr. Cook for the next question.
Thank you. So my story is kind of similar to Representative Puppolo's. You know, I was looking for a program that was flexible for me as a non-traditional student. I graduated from Putnam Vocational Technical High School in 2000. And so when I went back to school, I was 10 years removed from high school. You know, I was a carpenter, I was making a great living, and I was happy swinging a hammer for a living. Unfortunately, I ended up getting hurt on a job, which is what led me to make the decision to pursue a college degree. And I was looking for a program that was going to be flexible and make me feel comfortable sort of in the environment as a non-traditional student. And that's exactly what I found at STCC. I was able to take courses online, take courses during the day, take courses in the evening, and even on weekends, which is something that wasn't offered at other schools that I was looking at. And I never felt out of place at STIC. I always felt like I belonged, and I always saw people who looked like me, not just in terms of ethnicity, but also with the age difference. You know, I went to school with people who were even older than me. And I always felt comfortable. Later on, I ended up going to a different school for one semester, and it was the complete opposite, where I took a course during the day, and I felt completely out of place taking a class with 18 and 19-year-olds when I was 29 at the time. And so, yeah, that's, you know, I found exactly what I was looking for at STIC. I ended up going back and completing my associate's degree at STCC and graduated in 2012. You know, I'm very proud of the education that I got at STIC. And I used that education as a foundation for my bachelor's and eventually my master's. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to have been a student at STCC.
Fantastic.
It's fantastic to hear your outlook, and I want to ask a follow-up question to each of you. But let me sound out the theme there. That notion that you all talk about, access and affordability. Representative Williams, to hear you call us the People's College, right? We live that version. Representative Ramos, to know that we really do look, feel, and welcome the way the city and the greater Springfield region really does, is as true when you were there as it is today. 85% of our students live within 8 miles of campus. We are very much still that local people's institution, providing that onboard to higher education. It's wonderful to hear your experiences. So here's the follow-up. You are looked up to by so many, but you didn't magically get formed that way. If you could teleport back, what was your thinking when you were walking around on campus, when you went into admissions that was in the bottom of building 16, but is now, by the way, in that glorious student learning commons on the back of campus, which was vacant, and a big long warehouse when you were there? What was your outlook? Could you see, were you already thinking that little kernel in your mind around sort of public advocacy or policy? What was your mindset then? Because again, I think it will be helpful for even our students to understand we are all works in progress. We don't just show up at campus ready to be that elected official that you are today.
Well, honestly, just so we probably just popcorn in, I guess it's just my outlook. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to be, who I was going to become, right? I went for liberal arts. I needed to figure out, you know, if I was coming or going, and eventually I was going to land into, you know, a certificate program. Honestly, you know, I was just trying to get those prerequisites out of the way, and then try to figure out, okay, maybe on the next step, I'll figure out exactly, you know, the harder classes and things that I wanted to get into. You know, obviously I was taking sociology classes, getting involved with clubs and different events, and trying to figure out, because like for me, I was a true freshman. So when I went in, I was straight out of high school. And during my time there, what ended up happening was 9/11 happened, right? So when I seen the tragedy of 9/11, I watched in Building 13. Like, we got out of class and we sat around those picnic tables, or those picnic tables inside, and we all stood around. And, you know, going through that at that time at Stick, like, it kind of created a bond, I guess, because obviously we were told to go home, but at that moment, just trying to find ourselves and going through those different circumstances really shaped kind of an understanding, I think, after, because there was a lot of healing during that time, in my time, because all of us went to Stick at different times. And, you know, like Representative Ramos didn't go in as a traditional, you know, first semester freshman. He went in as, you know, a continuing ed kind of student. So in my experience, walking in and just trying to understand and navigate, knowingly that, I guess, trying to understand financial aid, trying to understand admissions, it was a complete learning curve. But there was so many people at the table, like my counselor, Miss Carpenter, and I have to call her Miss Carpenter because my boy Sean's mom, right? She ended up being my counselor, and she would listen and help me out, trying to figure out and navigate me that year and a half that I was there, and making sure that the classes that I was taking was actually classes that maybe it wasn't in the direction that I thought that I was going, but it was a prerequisite that I needed to make sure that once I got to the next level, it was a class that I didn't have to worry about. And it was inexpensive and affordable, because when I was working at the YMCA, so every single check was going straight to STCC. So it was definitely an experience.
Appreciate that. Representative Puppolo, I mean, from STCC to AIC to law school, and now the dean of the delegation, but what was your outlook? What was your mindset? What were the things you were thinking about back when you were on campus?
Yeah, Mr. President, I think a lot to do with it was I was actually in, like you said, business finance. It's where I got my associate's degree. Certainly, you know, our family was involved in public service. But at the time of really on campus, my main goal was degree in finance, because at the time, you know, I was, you know, running a family farming business, you know, and you know, from a business perspective, that's what I was looking to do, right? I wanted to get some education in terms of, you know, knowledge of accounting, cost accounting, all of those great courses that go with business finance, you know, and really, you know, to learn that aspect of it. But also, you know, being the liberal arts, you know, sort of background, and different courses that one has to take, I was able to some political science, some American government courses. So that further, I think, you know, got me involved in terms of the different, different stuff.
It's helpful, and we hear that a lot. You know, I want to follow up.
Making sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, we hear this about juggling, right? That our students carry so many. They're working, that they're parents, and carry a lot of these obligations. So we definitely hear that theme a lot, Representative Puppolo. I appreciate that. You know, Representative Williams, I don't know if you ended up working during your time at the college, or the things that you were thinking about back then.
I think, because this is the late 60s, early 70s, and I think the perspective was a little different. Most of the students there were full-time students. They had left high school, go to junior college, and the plan was to go from junior college to you know, Westfield or UMass or something. But I can remember the campus at the time. Remember, this is the late 60s, early 70s, and it was a turbulent time in America. You know, we had an African American center, and we wore dashikis, we had afros, and we put tremendous demands on the administration in terms of making a pathway for more Black and brown students. Because at that time, when I was attending STIC, there weren't that many Black and brown students. I don't know what the population was, but it wasn't that many. So it was always our message coming out of the civil rights background and working with, you know, Ben Swan, Ray Jordan, and Rick Hurst and Roger Williams. It's the advocacy, and we carried the advocacy to STIC, and they let us express ourselves. They were very forthwith, very understanding, and they tried to make life better for Black and brown students. I remember that because you know, that was a time in which college campuses, there were sit-ins, there were marches, there were demonstrations all over America, and even in Springfield College, Westfield State. And I appreciate the advocacy at STIC, and I appreciate them giving us a pathway and giving us an opportunity to express ourselves. And they made it. We had an African American Cultural Center there. I think it was right where the radio station is, if my memory serves me correct. I think it was somewhere in there, an African American standalone place that we could meet, and Black and brown students came together, and we came together and we talked about a new Springfield. We talked about a new America, and that advocacy was great. I'll never ever forget that, because we were on the ground. And as I said, and the affordability, that was the other thing. STIC has always been affordable, and I try to preach that now, the affordability. Some individuals will never ever get the opportunity to go from high school straight to college. And you are a tremendous People's College stepping stone, an opportunity that is far greater than UMass, Westfield State, AIC, Springfield College, or Winnick, or Elms College. You give Black and brown and average poor white folks an opportunity to exceed and have the opportunity to make it in America.
It's a powerful reminder, Representative Williams, of where we have been as a nation and as a college here in Springfield, and the work ahead. We certainly are doing our best, if you will, to evolve ourselves to ensure we are an anti-racist institution, and we're looking at our policies and our practices. We certainly have that access piece, as you mentioned. When you are the most affordable in the city, there's a reason why we have such significant enrollment from the Black and African American community, from the Latino, from the Puerto Rican and Dominican communities. Let me pull in Representative Ramos on this piece. Is, you know, coming to us with a career well in hand, you know, what was your outlook when you're on campus, and were you already thinking about public service when you landed at STCC?
It was 2010, and I had just come off of my first run for public office, which was a heartbreaking loss. I came within 80 votes of winning as a first-time candidate, and so yes, to answer your question, I was already thinking about public service, but my thought process was more around, am I going to be able to do this? Because I had so much on, you know, I had so much responsibility already, being a full-time dad, working part-time at the time, and you know, am I going to be able to do this 10 years removed from high school? So my thought process was around how and if I'm going to be able to complete my degree. So it was, you know, there was just a lot on my plate at the time, but you know, STCC made that possible through a very flexible schedule, and yeah, I was able to accomplish that.
Thank you.
All right. Dr. Cook, I think we're doing really good. Like, you're Anderson Cooper and I'm Abby Smith. But so, gentlemen, I want to shift gears for just a little bit, and not that we're going to get too far off, but, you know, none of you are strangers to policy and legislation. All of you have served on the city council. And although Rep. Ramos and Senator Gomez are new to the legislature, I know that you all have been very vocal around a variety of different issues. And right now, many would argue that there are, we're living in uncertain times, that there is so much to wrestle with. And although there are lots of challenges, there are going to be some opportunities also for some triumph, right? So we're talking about economic development. We're talking about the pandemic and getting, to a place of herd immunity, environmental, social justice, police reform. Talk to us about what your legislative priorities are going to be. We know that the deadline was this past Friday. Talk to us about what are, or I'm going to limit you, what are your top 2 legislative priorities? And then if you could also just give us a nugget or 2 about higher ed funding, because we all have heard in this conversation how important affordability is, and that an institution like ourselves can't necessarily continue to sustain making sure that we're affordable if we're not getting the adequate funding. And so of course, we're looking to you all to make sure that that happens, but talk to us a bit about your legislative priorities and higher ed funding. And we'll go to, why don't we go to Rep. Ramos, because he hasn't been able to start first and you just ended. And then Senator Gomez, because he's laughing at you.
So narrowing it down is going to be a challenge. There are, so first of all, I filed 13 pieces of legislation during this session. And I signed on to a number of bills that I believe are of substance and very important to me. I will tell you this, of all 13 pieces of legislation that I filed, just about every single one of them has a racial equity component to them. It was very important to me that we continue to have the conversation about racial equity because oftentimes, whether we realize it or not, whether it's intentional or unintentional, whenever a legislature passes a law, it unfortunately has a different effect on people of color than it does on non-minorities. And so the only way that we're going to fix that is by having that conversation and to be cautious and of that fact that that there is a possibility that this could unintentionally lead to more institutional racism. So I wanted to have a racial equity piece on every piece of legislation that I filed. I filed a sports betting bill that has a racial equity piece to it. I filed a judicial review a bill that is, if passed, will have a huge impact on the way that Black and brown people are treated in the justice system. I filed a judicial reappointment bill, which is to create a process for judges to be reappointed, which hopefully will lead to more diversity within the judicial system and also address the issue that I just mentioned, which is the way that people are treated in the justice system. So number one, racial equity. Every piece that I filed has a racial equity component to it. I filed a safe swimming bill along with Senator Gomez, which is intended to address the fact that Black and brown children are drowning at a much higher rate than non-minority children, and hopefully that will lead to Black and brown children getting more access to safe swimming. So that's number one to me, and number two, police accountability is very important. I filed a facial surveillance bill, which is similar to what I filed on the city council. Senator Gomez was also a co-sponsor of that bill on the city council that we were able to pass, and we were the 5th municipality in the entire country to pass such legislation. But it's important that we have that conversation around racial equity, and that we remember that Black and brown issues are more than just immigration and criminal justice reform. We want to have a conversation about how we build equity, how we build wealth in the Black and brown communities. So every piece of economic development, every meeting, every bill that we have regarding economic development. I want to make sure that we are also a part of that conversation and that we have a seat at the table.
Great, thank you so much. We'll go to Representative Puppolo and then Representative Williams.
Gomez.
I defer to my elders. No, if you want, I'll just go real quick. So
really quickly, and then don't forget higher ed funding.
No, I am only going to talk about the bills that I filed specific to education and higher end issues that have to do with the school. But for the most part, I echo the sentiments of my colleague in the House, Orlando Ramos. Majority of those things that he was speaking about, that is exactly the platform that we ran off and what we are looking forward and looking towards. So one bill that I sponsored was SD 2161, which is it taxes college endowments at a rate of 2.5% at $1 million or more. The revenue is deposited into a trust fund to fund EEC and higher ed for lower income and middle class residents. The fund is overseen by the Board of Trustees. There's another bill that I filed, which is 2128, an act to ensure safe and healthy public higher education campuses, requires public higher ed facilities to update their current infrastructure to improve ventilation because of the COVID, requires public higher ed to monitor staff and students for COVID symptoms until the state of emergency is cleared, requires sufficient PPE access, state bears costs of the burden. And then it puts some issues with updating historic buildings, which STCC has a lot of historic buildings, and has an emergency preamble. And then I have SD 1914, which is an act relative to the late fees for the no interest student loans, would require Mass Department of Higher Education and the Office of Student Financial Assistance to not apply late fees to no interest student loans from March 10th, 2021 to December 31st, 2022, and any late fee paid on a no interest student loan issued from March 10th to 2021 to the effective date of this legislation will be required to be refunded within those 30 days. Those are, obviously, I'm a big supporter of the Cherish Act. We know that the Student Opportunity Act, when it comes to the Promise Act, Governor Baker has stated that he is going to fully fund the Student Opportunity Act. We still have to cross, Joe Comerford's bill across the table on the Senate side. When it comes to the Cherish Act, we want to make sure that when it comes to public institutions like STIC, that there's an availability or a way that we can find a way to make at least community college free, community colleges that are here, that are in state. That is something that I'm ready to support, and also to make sure that the needs, and obviously when it comes to community college, to be able to operate under these conditions that we're living under is very important to myself. So short, brief, and to the point. Those are the things that I'm looking for support and also partners on. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about that legislation.
Thank you, Representative Puppolo.
Yes, well, first and foremost about the funding, I think, by and large, the delegation in Western Mass has been highly supportive of our colleges and universities, and I think we're going to continue that. We've got a strong delegation. I think it's, obviously, going to benefit from the newly members, certainly from Springfield. And I think it's going to be good. We're going to continue to be well-rounded. We're going to continue to be solid to higher ed. Again, I think we've been pretty solid. Our track record has been solid, and we're going to continue. We're going to continue with that funding, and obviously, the Cherish Act is something we need to bring over to goal line. We've obviously tackled the Promise Act. There's some other issues, with funding that. Whoever says he wants to fund it, we got to make sure that it's funded. It hasn't been. It wasn't in FY21, but hopefully FY22 we're going to be able to do that post-pandemic. As well as dealing with some of the MCAS issues, moving forward. But I think we've been solid again with higher ed. We're going to continue to do that. A few of my areas, I think the big elephant in the room, if you will, is is the pandemic, right? So we've got to get through the budget cycle. We've got to get the assistance from the Fed so that we can move forward. We've got to help our small businesses. We've got to help individuals get through the pandemic. And we've got to deal with this mess of distribution of vaccinations and what have you. So all of the related bills relative to the pandemic, funding, budgetary needs on that are going to be critically important. I think, for myself and the majority of the legislature, and that's going to be important moving forward. There's some other issues. I'm the new chair of the Export Development Committee, Joint Committee on Export Development. So we're going to look at opportunities relative to economic development coming out of the post-pandemic area. Looking how we can again get the economy vibrant, get it rolling again, not only intrastate but out of state as well, which is going to be critically important. And then some of my other bills relative to cybersecurity, cryptocurrency, are going to continue to be important. We've got some work to do with healthcare. We've got to fine tune some of that. We've got to look at some of the telemedicine, telehealth that's certainly booming and has expanded. So we've got to look at that from both a health standpoint, but well as a issue relative to cybersecurity and protection of that data and that information and those files as they get transmitted between doctors' offices and patients and state institutions and house corrections as well, back and forth. So we've got to make sure that line is secure. We still got sports betting. I know has been talked about. I think it's critically important that we move forward with that. It's going to be I think another tool of income. I know there's some proposals on the Senate and both the House side. I think the House has some really solid proposals, and I'm hoping we can pick up with Leader Wagner and other people in the House that have been working hard on that for several years. So I'm committed to working that on the House side as well, and then making that we move forward with not only education and some of the senior issues, but our veteran issues. So the pigeonhole, I know when you're running a campaign, it's nice to go 1, 2, 3, but when you're actually in the business and you're in the office, there's so many different areas that require the amount of attention that it needs. So that's just a few of them. But again, I think again, budgetary stuff, post-pandemic, pandemic-related issues, and then some of the cyber and tech issues are still going to weigh heavy as we move forward, in this session. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I was on a few bills, and coming out of the George Floyd situation, knee on my neck, 8 seconds. The House of Representatives, along with Speaker Moriano and Senate President Spiker, named 3 new committees, and I was duly appointed to one of those committees to be chair, along with my Sonia Diaz over on the Senate side. That committee is civil rights, equity, and inclusion. And the broad band of that committee is to look at all of state programs within the state, every aspect of government, and try and make folks understand what systematic racism is and what white rage is, in terms of why there is so much opposition whenever Black and brown people take 2 steps forward. We seem to take 3 steps back. So I was delighted to be chair on the House side of that illustrious committee with a lot of authority, a lot of oversight, and we will be looking at every aspect of government. And one aspect I think I'm going to look at first will be employment, and looking at the constitutional offices, Secretary of State, Governor's office, Auditor's office, Attorney General's office, and Treasurer's office, and make sure their hiring practices are up to par with the rest of the state in terms of inclusion, Black and brown people. It's a huge, huge, huge assignment, and got great staffing. We want to try to get it done. And the other point, as Angelo makes, we work together as a delegation in Western Massachusetts. They have more representatives in Boston than we do in Western Mass. Okay, that's a number game. So we have to work together with Chairman Wagner, our leader, and Angelo and Adam and then Orlando and Brian Ash and Mike Finn. We have to work as a unit. And the other piece is that, remember, I was a lead sponsor on the Juneteenth Day, which will be a celebration this coming June. It's a holiday for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The two bills, I filed many bills, but the two bills that I really want to talk about is House Bill 3717, and it's an act to expand opportunity for minority and women businesses in public construction. That bill was filed by Governor Baker on last year. It didn't get any traction. That bill levels the playing field for minority contractors and public contracts. It talks about raising the threshold and DCAM to $1 million. It talks about dealing with file sub bids. This is a technical term. File sub bids, contractors who get contractors from contractors. There isn't any oversight. There are millions and millions of dollars in file sub bids. Adam's a contractor. He understands this. Angelo understands this. Black and brown people have been shut out. We're going to put some oversight on those file sub bid contractors and try to raise the threshold in DCAM, which is a state certification program, to $1 million. So that's technical stuff. And the other is House Bill 3986. Speaker Mariano talked about broadband and inclusion and including folks in this broadband conversation. My colleague Frank Moran out of Lawrence and myself filed House Bill 3986. It talks about creating the mass equity broadband adoption program, working with the Speaker's office to get that done. And what the whole conversation about that bill is to provide financial assistance for individuals dealing with broadband, the digital cliff, falling off the digital cliff, access to broadband, as we're hearing about Comcast wants to raise prices and now they're holding off for a couple of years. But people need financial assistance. Black and brown people, especially during this pandemic, are being left further and further behind. We got to put a stop to it. You know, it's very important. I think the broadband issue, Comcast, and matter of fact, there's a public hearing tonight with the city. Comcast's contract is up. So those are some of the exciting things. I just want to thank all of my colleagues here who have filed many, many bills. I'll sign on to all of them because in Western Mass, we all work together. Thank you.
I think Denise, this is when I would turn to you as co-host and say, look at the display of policy muscle from our delegation, right?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I was just going to say, those are all really excellent pieces of legislation. And when you talked about, you know, needing to work together with the local delegation here in the western part of the state, you know, we understand that you oftentimes are outnumbered by those that are out in the east, and that, you know, you're only one vote and you can't necessarily do it all on your own. But I do think it's really important, and I'm hopeful that our students and our staff and our faculty are watching, because what we can do is to help with our advocacy, right? Is to help lend our voices to making sure that we support the bills that you all are putting forward, that we know are going to further help our mission in transforming the lives of our students. So thank you very much. And I will hand it back to you.
Process-wise, I have one more question. I know Denise has one more question, then we'll get to the Q&A. Let me amplify a little bit of that incredible crosswalk of where you've placed your investments and where you're going to be supportive of us. Cherish Act is certainly a hope for us, and I can share with you that essentially as a people endeavor, 2/3 of our budget at STCC is our personnel. Nearly 65% is full and part-time employees. And so if we had significant investment via the Cherish Act, we're going to put that into our people. And behind that, by the way, the other investment, of course, we would need is on the infrastructure side. I've met and talked with each of you individually and certainly collectively. We've done a lot of work together, knowing things like Building 20, which houses our School of Health, which has such a significant set of programs, including nursing, dental, respiratory, is a building that has 70 million. worth of deferred maintenance on it. I mean, these are staggering numbers, unfortunately not replicated in any of the other community colleges in Massachusetts. So that's how we would utilize great policy like the Cherish Act. I also appreciate, Williams, you mentioning DCAM, right? The Division of Capital Asset Management and Maintenance. We definitely have benefited greatly from your advocacy and support, and an entity like DCAM sees your investment in us, that economic development bill, and $5 million towards that Building 20 project as an indication of the kind of support that we have from our delegation in this region. So these are significant. One other policy note to mention, success funds were greenlit in this last budget, and to see them potentially made permanent down the road is a way for us to augment the way that we engage our students. My next question is going to get into a little bit on how we can take care of our students, and male students in particular. But with success funds, we're going to do things like take what is a TRIO program. Essentially, that's a federal grant that focuses on first generation and students of color and provides them with high touch engagement with an advisor, with a tutor, with all these supports that really help persistence. It gives us a chance to expand a program like that. And for us, MILE is the program you may have heard of, Men in Leadership and Education. That's how we're going to basically underwrite more high level engagement with students, and particularly our students of color. And so that's the segue to my next question. Okay, we've certainly talked about being the most affordable and accessible institution in Springfield. Clearly significant and important for our Black and Latino communities. But our data also shows that we, like nearly all community colleges in Massachusetts, struggle to retain and graduate men of color. We are making investments in our people and in our systems, but what suggestions do you have for ways that STCC can help male students stay the course?
Mr. President, unfortunately, I'm going to have to take off. I've got another call I've got to be on. But,
Sure thing.
I first want to congratulate everybody, Denise and everybody at the stake, and certainly all of the listeners and the alum and everybody that's currently here. It's being there, a long time ago, I guess, in retrospect, I think that, the institution was always welcoming, like I said in my opening remark, and I think we continue on with that tradition, and I think the opportunities are there, for a path forward. Education, maybe that there's follow-up, if you will, right? Maybe there needs to be a little bit more of follow-up and just saying, okay, either during the educational study or maybe scratch with right? And I think the demands of a non-traditional student, I guess, would be a little bit different than a traditional student, right? So there might be different issues that may have to be developed or concentrated around someone that may be young or fresh out of college. Fresh school and may need some of that, different kind of nurturing, as opposed to somebody that's maybe a little bit non-traditional and may have other tugs, right? May have a family.
I appreciate that. Let me turn to Representative Williams, and then we'll go in reverse order, Ramos, and then Senator Gomez. Rep. Williams, we're all ears for ideas and encouragement for helping our male students stay the course.
I was just, my wife, we were having a conversation yesterday. She serves as a trustee up at Westfield State University. And we're just talking about people who were successful. I think what we have to, this is my humble opinion, we need to get back to more mentoring programs. I don't think a lot of our young people see enough of us in positions that we have been elevated in terms of working hard and elected officials, working in colleges. They have to see it. Seeing is believing. They have to believe they can fly. And if they don't see the example in front of them, it's very hard. I mean, back a few years ago, you've always were around folks. They always saw folks who had some kind of success. And they interacted with them, they mentored with them. This has to start early on. I think we've gotten away from some basic foundational things that I think are really, really, really good. And that's one of them. I mean, so I had said this, that I don't think Stick toots its own horn enough. I don't think the PSA announcements, seeing folks on media, social media, or different platforms, in terms of if you believe it, you can achieve it, but they have to see it. You know, reading about something is one thing. Experience real life situations and talking with people who have walked down that path that you've walked through, who had the pebble in their foot, who had big families, who come from being poor and disenfranchised and looked at and frowned upon and talked about. And when you look at society and you look at all the images that are creating society, you don't feel good about yourself because the images that you see don't reflect what they should reflect. And you should be a reflection of yourself. And I just think we need to get back to that. It's kind of like the self-esteem, the self-building stuff, because I see a lot of young Black and brown boys especially. They're the hardest hit. And we don't, in my estimation, as a community and as a society, and as even in Springfield, we don't do enough to reach out to those Black and brown boys who sometimes are in school and the teachers don't call on them, and the teachers ignore them and look past them. Because I was one of those Black kids they look right past, and they, you know that. So that's what I think. I think we just need the mentoring, the esteem building, talking with them, the groups, mentoring, partnering up, letting those folks see Black and brown men who have worked very hard and they have overcome obstacles and they become, and I guess in a word, sort of successful. They have to see us. They have to see us, and they have to see us day in and day out, not just doing Black history, but not just for a read aloud program. They have to see the images. If that means at Stick creating a mentor club for some of the alumni, they come back and we come in there, one of us every week or one of us every month, and we sit down and have these rap sessions and we talk to these young folks, because you got to meet them where they are. You have to meet them where they are. It means we have to go down. We're so to speak, on the mountaintop, so to speak, of life. They're in the valley. They're down in the valley. And then when you're in the valley, someone's on the mountaintop, you have to go down in the valley and help elevate them. That means each one teach one, however they say it, grab them by the hand, hold the hand. But our Black and brown boys need a lot of love, tender love, because they are marginalized in this society. They're really marginalized, and we all know that they are. So I applaud you folks even having these kind of all these sessions are good. We have to start talking to one another like we used to. With all the platforms and the media, no one ever. Everything is texting and video messaging, but we need to be able to talk to one another. That's just what I think.
Denise and I are writing that down. Rep. Williams, you should know we are hearing that, and we are certainly talking internally. And Denise, he's volunteering to clone himself somehow and spend more time at campus. So we're going to take him up on that offer.
Absolutely. He's walked himself right into the next question.
I know we've got to get to Representative Ramos and Senator Gomez. One note too on this. One of the ways that we want to try to tackle this head on with our young men of color is to try to get our credits in their hands earlier. I point to a significant accomplishment, which is early college commerce. And this is the idea of we have 20 credits on the table for students attending commerce, the High School of Commerce, to already earn and see that they are college going material before they even graduate from high school. I think it's efforts like that, along with, as you say, Representative Williams, being really diligent and conscientious about what's the mentoring, what's the level of engagement, and combine that with some of the equity auditing work we're doing, where we're looking and reviewing our hiring practices and really trying to reimagine how do we ensure the most diverse, equitable set of employees we can have. All that combined, hopefully, has us moving the needle there. But let me give a chance for Representative Ramos to jump in.
Yeah, so thank you. So Representative Williams is on the right path. I think mentorship has a huge part to do with it. It was no different than um, being in high school when how do you retain students? What is one of the ways that you can retain students in high school is by making sure that the people who are talking to them and conversing them actually look like them. It's always an important factor. And I'm speaking in general terms. I think all higher education institutions can benefit from hiring a more diverse faculty. So that's definitely part of it. And the mentorship piece is also important. Um, when I first decided to run for public office, um, I was like I said, I was a carpenter. I had no political experience. I don't come from a political family. I don't come from a family with money. Um, and I was just a carpenter with a desire to help make my community a better place. And it wasn't until I met my at the time city councilor Jose Dosado that I knew that something like that could be possible for me to be in that position as well. He was the first Latino ever elected to the city council, and that motivated me to be able to to put that in my mind and to think that it was possible. So you never know who you can inspire just by being yourself, and just by seeing someone who looks like you doing something that you never thought was possible.
As was said, seeing is believing. And former representative, now retired Representative Tosado, also an STCC graduate. This is the kind of company that we have a chance to keep. It's wonderful. Senator Gomez, helping our male students stay the course.
I think that's we know that Black and brown men end up for some reason in the statistics as being the most uneducated man in the state of Massachusetts versus a white woman, which is the most educated person. But I think those demographics are changing. I think when you have community organizations that are conducting, weekend seminars with the children, when you have a community that is really bought in to the idea that education, right, that piece of paper, that degree, let it be GED, what you work hard for is that passport out of pocket, right? That's something that a lot of, you don't get taught that. Like I said early on, my father told me, you want to go to college, you got to do it two ways. You're going to pay or you're going to go to the Army. But that's what they used to tell us when we were younger, right? And the people that came before us, there was only two ways. That's what the system had told us. We can put a gun in your hand at 17 years old. You could be in the middle of a war, but we don't got enough money to send you to college. When I went to school, when I found out I had a book scholarship, right? I'm sitting here with my district director. When we went to school together, because he went to Stick too, when we found out we had to buy books, it was the end of the world. When we had to find out that when they say, in all respect to everything that you're trying to do to make sure that it's equitable and there's access, right? When you go and there's not a computer available because the computer lab is full and you can't even get a computer to finish your work. And then if you leave school, because I have to take the PVTA to get back home, that's another issue, right? How do we create access to computer labs within our community centers or in community spaces? Right now we're in a new age of a renaissance of technology. And outside of that, the things that, we traditionally do, putting a business mindset behind it, that we have a ton of people that can be entrepreneurs on top of, educators, on top of, people that could get into higher learning, become principals, and in my aspect, I look at things on a policy standpoint that I want to legislate on things that I have a lived experience that I had the problems with. So when I transferred from Stick to Westfield State, to get a computer at Westfield State was a lot even harder than it was when I was at Stick. And honestly, I had to, can I borrow your laptop? Can you copy this book? Because we couldn't afford books. And one thing that Stick gave me that Westfield did it, and it's no shade towards them. They gave me a book waiver. Ms. Carpenter helped me pay for it on the back end, right? That immediately I was going to come up with $1,000 to buy books, depending on the class and the things that you take. Those are barriers and things that come in front of us that some kids, it's already, I had to fill out my financial aid all by myself because we have somebody at home, because I'm a first generation student, that I couldn't figure out financial aid. And that right there is a barrier, right? When they're coming out of that transition, and I have a family member that actually is going to be taking and that opportunity, I have to talk them into it, what's happening at Commerce. So big kudos to you, President Cook. He's at Commerce, and I had to walk him through and I said, there's going to be an opportunity for you of a lifetime. So please take advantage of that. But if we put these different things and different individuals in front of them, and we don't have to come from elected office. We have inspirational people already working in the community that wants to fill that void, right? While we're out in Boston, they want to be that Superman or that Superwoman to that individual that just needs that time to say, listen, this is what's going on at home. How can I walk through? How can I mitigate through that situation? And we just have to try to make it easier, specifically for Black and brown men. You know, some of them are fathers, just like mothers. There's no opportunity for single fathers. Shout outs to Orlando Ramos. you know, shout outs to a lot of men out there that are stepping up to the plate and trying to figure that out, that don't, that are living in between houses. Like myself, I have 3 children. My oldest child, I have to spend a special attention because she lives with her mom. But those are things that we have to create and try to figure out a way to wrap around these individuals that, one, in the school system, figure out a way of, these are the most at-risk folks. But then when you pay attention to them, how they make an about face, and they kind of, their trajectory ends up becoming what? Probably the next state senator. And that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wow, this is fantastic. So this is the very last question, and we want to be really respectful of your time, and I'm hoping we can leave a little bit of time for Q&A. But if not, then we'll allow you to do just some closing remarks, and then if we get any in, we can send them your way, and then we can make sure that they get back to those individuals. But in closing, we've heard a lot about how much of a stepping stone STCC has been for you all and for many people in the community, right? The People's College. And we also know that at the same time, higher ed can seem to be a bit exclusive, and STIC is trying very hard to not be exclusive, right? We want to really amplify our value proposition of being affordable and accessible. And we want to break down all those barriers and all those challenges and really not make it a daunting task to further your education or to get an opportunity at a workforce development program. And so you all have a large reach. You have a constituency. And so what I'm asking is, how will you be able to help us amplify the value and the benefit of attending STCC? And this is a 2-part question. And Representative Williams, this is what I meant when I said you're going to walk yourself right into another responsibility, as though you don't have enough, or all you're gonna have to hold and challenge your colleagues to task. And what are some of the ways that we can count on you all to being champions for STCC? So you talked a lot about being on the mountaintop and making sure that those in the valley have access to you. How can we count on you all to champion STCC?
That's very easy. That's not even a hard question. First of all, I think we started today. This is the first step. In any journey, the most important step is the first step. And all I can say is that I'm accessible. Whatever you would like for me to do as an alumnus to help promote STCC, you can count me in, whether it's legislatively, whether it's coming on campus, whether it's starting a mentoring program, because I see the value of STIC. If STCC isn't inclusive and it isn't made affordable and people don't have the opportunity, this is it. This is where a lot of individuals are going to have to start due to just how society is. They can't afford, parents can't afford it. They're coming from broken homes. They're coming from single parents. Their parents themselves, and kudos to Orlando Ramos, who did as a single father. I always applauded him for doing that. It's important, but we have to make sure that we're reaching down and reaching back. And I know sometimes people get busy, but you know what? I'm never too busy to help young people. You can't be too busy because that, out of all the advocacy that we do, from my estimation, some of the most important work is done not in the legislature, but it's done outside the legislature. When you're going on a Saturday morning, when you're working at the Dunbar or MLK or New England Citizens Council, and you're going back and you're trying to help somebody, that's important. And I think, as I said, I will be there at your beckoning call, 413-537-5130.
Thank you. Representative Ramos.
Thank you. Yes, I co-sign my colleague, Representative Williams. I think I said earlier that oftentimes we don't realize how we can inspire people just by being ourselves. And I truly believe that. I think that, you have four perfectly good examples here of what can be attained and accomplished by attending STCC and within education from STCC. And I will continue saying that everywhere that I go. Word of mouth is a very powerful tool. And one of the things that we often do as elected officials and as we as candidates for public office, because we are candidates every few years, we have to run for our positions. And we oftentimes list our accomplishments on our websites, on our mailers, and with that comes our background in education. And I'm sure that I'm not the only one that does this. I list my education at STCC as under my my flyers and on my website for people to know that I did attain my education from STCC, and that's something that I'm very, very proud of. In my office, I'm sitting in my office right now, and I haven't had a chance to decorate it yet, but I will be hanging up my diploma from STCC on my wall to my left once I finish decorating my office. So, those are the things that we will continue to do as elected officials. Word of mouth and talking to people is very important, and it's a good way to spread the word that you can do this too. And just like my colleague, Councilor Williams, to answer the second part of your question, I make myself accessible anytime that I could come in person or virtually to speak to your student body. I'm here, and I'll make myself available, and I'm looking forward to it.
Fantastic. So really quickly, we're going to get you a pendant. And then we're also going to get you some STCC brochures so that at some point when the pandemic is over and you have traffic in your offices, you'll have that information readily available for your constituents, because we know that they come to you for a variety of different things. And so we will make sure that you are fully stocked. Senator Gomez.
Well, I'm not going to be redundant, and I'm just going to say completely, if you do know how the person that I am, I'm always the first one in, last one out. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to promote. I'm ready to be a partner. I'm gladly speak to kids that are incoming when it comes to STCC, talking about what it is to be a true freshman. And then higher education, because once I left, I went to Westfield. I ended up having to come back to Stick too. So, I didn't really touch on that, but the education is never over. And I think that that's one thing that when it comes to Stick, that, there's endless possibilities of you can find a career if one thing didn't work out for you, if it was a certificate program. I think just having someone that looks like the person across the table, energized and excited to really motivate them, to let them know that education is key. I think that we'll do great for our community. STCC is the heart of Springfield, Massachusetts. It sits right on top of the hill. and it oversees the Valley. And honestly, on its onset, I just believe that STCC, being a Latino serving institute, obviously, and in the heart of the Black community, it speaks volumes of the people you see in front of you that are part of the STCC body. So from that, I just want to say that please count me in, whatever you do share. And obviously, you have an extraordinary staff, a staff that embodies what we look like in this community. It's not just Denise. We have a lot of great people, Black and brown people that have been part of this institute. And I just wanted to say thank you, President Cook, and also Vice President Hurst, for this opportunity to be able to be a part of this with my esteemed colleagues. And I look forward to doing this again and being able to share and be a part of the STCC community once we are in.
Thank you. So it feels like you led us right into closing remarks. Rep. Ramos, anything more to say? I mean, you both ended on such great notes, but I wanted to be sure to give you the opportunity just in case.
Just grateful for this opportunity. Thank you for including me in this panel, and I look forward to many more in the future. You can count on me to be a friend and an ally, and count on me to be a supporter of your initiatives at the state level.
Thank you. Rep. Williams?
Just thank you, Denise and President Cook, for the opportunity. And also for Lydia, who worked tirelessly on this.
Yes, to get a hold of you.
And work and work and work. I'm trying to push for a pay raise for you, Lydia.
So thank you so much for that, Representative Williams. Before I hand it back over to Dr. Cook to close us out, I do want to take a moment to thank you all again and to thank Representative Puppolo, who had to leave, for giving us your time today on this afternoon. I think it's extremely important that our staff, our faculty, our students are able to have opportunities to hear from their local leaders, and especially local leaders who are alums and who have really done extraordinary work for our community and continue to do so through public service. So thank you all for your time, and we appreciate all that you do to make sure that STCC continues to be the affordable and accessible institution that it is here in the heart of the city. Dr. Cook?
Yeah, let me try to help close it out. First, let me also thank my co-facilitator. You all know, I know, we know Denise's skills and talent. So grateful for this. These community conversations really have become signature for us, and I really look forward, Denise, to that great work ahead. I think a great deal about the gratitude. It's incredible to hear you express your appreciation to the institution, but we are the ones who are so thankful for your stories, for your work, for your effort and your advocacy. You as students, you as graduates, and carrying that to Beacon Hill is so powerful on behalf of our technical community college. You know, I think about not only are we going to get through this pandemic, we will be stronger as an institution. It will be things like your advocacy to help ensure higher ed is included in an earlier phase of vaccination that will make the type of difference for us. I know our faculty are asking us that on a weekly basis now. But even looking down the road, our strategic plan sunset as of the new year. So towards the end of this year, we'll be engaging again in a new strategic plan for that process. And I look to you, Rep. Williams, given all the conversations we've had and this idea of renewal, working hard to really live that community part of our middle name and staying engaged both with you and for you, and being sure that we are just constantly sort of working to renew that partnership we have with Springfield and the greater Springfield area. That's our work ahead. We're really looking forward to it. And I can't thank you enough for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And in closing, thank you to John Reynolds, Jim Danko, and especially Lydia Rivera Early for helping ensure that we were able to pull off today's community conversations. Thank you and have a great week.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.